operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Gator Truth. On this episode, we'll take a look at the Texas Longhorns' trip to the swamp this Saturday to take on our Gators. With that said, it's been an interesting bye week. I am sorry that my picks did not make it up. Where I was did not have the best reception for doing so, so I apologize for that. If anyone was looking for the Saturday morning picks, I'll try and make sure they're up on the next bye week. With that said, let's go ahead. Let's talk about this game. Of course, big opportunity for the Gators in the swamp. Backs to the wall, really. A 1-3 start, and a team last year that just absolutely crushed you. So if there's ever a time for you to show up and show out and show what this team can be, it's this. Because if you go into 1-4, well, there's a high chance there goes your bowl chances. I mean, the bowl chances may be blown already, but I do believe if you go 1-4, then they're all but gone, because I don't see you going 1-4 and then winning. What is it? You need 5 out of the next 7, especially when you've got A&M at Kyle Field and they're looking really great, and you've got Georgia and Jacksonville, and a Tennessee team that looks really good, a Mississippi State team who just took Tennessee to the wire, and you go to Ole Miss to face a team that replaced, what was it? Oh, yeah, 18-ish starters. And somehow here they are beating LSU despite massive roster turnover. LSU, as I've said, is about who I thought they were. Unfortunately, we aren't. I won't beat the dead horse of my belief that we would see some more of Russ Callaway's fingerprints in the offense and have not. However, that is what it is. And with that said, let's go ahead. Let's see at least what I think about the Gators offense going into this game. Now, Texas is the best defense that Florida has faced, bar none. Not saying that Miami didn't have a good defense, not saying that a good defense did not exist at LSU. However, this is a Texas defense that I believe was top 5 last year, if not top 3 in the nation, and they returned a ton of starters. And now they're coming to take on our offense that has been struggling. First offensive key, as I say every week, run the ball, Jaden Ball, get him the ball a lot. It'll be interesting to see if Billy Napier's hand is forced into doing that, since Jacoby Jackson is out, usually the number 2 back who goes, switches in and out with Jaden Ball. It'll be very interesting to see if Billy Napier just says next man up, go in there and get as many snaps as Jacoby Jackson would, or if we see more reliance on Baugh, as a lot of people have been calling for, because he really has been our best offensive player through 4 games. And there have been questionable things like his number of carries, at LSU and other things during this time. Now, to help out Baugh, again, we bring back, you got to have the improved offensive line, tight end blocking, especially against the front 7 of Texas, because if you don't see that improvement, it doesn't matter how much you give it to Baugh. He's, he can only do so much with what he's working with. So, again, give it to Baugh, but we've got to see that better work on the O-line, especially that right side of the O-line. What really infuriates me is the amount of time we run behind the right side of the O-line, where the biggest question mark before the season was that right tackle position, and it's still a question mark no matter who's there on the right side. And Damian George seems to have taken a bit of a step back at right guard this year. You do, meanwhile, on the left, you have all SEC tackle. Why am I drawing a blank. Of course, I've had a long day, but you've got an all SEC tackle. You've got decent left guard, not great. Austin Barber, that's the tackle. Why am I losing my mind? But anyways, Harris at left guard. And of course, you have the center, which can go either way. Jake Slaughter, who's been just great for the Gators. Last year, first team All-American. But it tends to be that we run to the right more than we should, try and run beyond Damian George, when really probably we should be going to the open left, or at least behind some of our strongest linemen. But who am I to say go behind your best linemen for the best results? The next key that I have is we've got to hit throws beyond the line of scrimmage. A lot of the passing game this year, and a lot of that's been scouted, is throwing a ton of screens, finding new ways to do screens. And one thing Billy Napier said is we've got to get the vertical passing game going, and that was kind of a focus in the bye week. Now, some people, and this has happened for years, believe if you say vertical, that must mean throwing the ball 50 yards down the field. And in a way it is. But it could just be, let's hit it 10, 15 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Something vertical as opposed to horizontal, like a screen pass. And this is something I've been saying for a long time. This is where I thought Russ Callaway would come in and really help. And of course, we haven't seen his fingerprints because Russ Callaway would bring something I've talked about for years on the show, which is the 0-1 step drops that kind of alleviate some pressure on the offensive line. You know, the just quick plays. And I'm talking about quick plays. I'm not talking about all hitches, which we see a lot. I'm not talking about wait till third, fourth down to do a quick slant. I'm talking about all sorts of just quick hitting plays, finding your guy in space and going forward. Unfortunately, opposing defensive coordinators, and we've heard this from multiple defensive coordinators now, know our tendencies, so they play them. I've said the pick six against LSU shouldn't have been thrown, yes. But another thing was they play our tendency to throw that slant in that position. And good on them, good scouting, good seeing what's coming and doing that. So as much as DJ gets blamed, I also have to say when you have such a tendency, there is a partial issue with that. So we do have to hit throws beyond the line of scrimmage. And as I've said many times on the show, you do that, you back up the linebackers, you force them to play more than the first 3-4 yards down the field, and all of a sudden running room opens up for Jaden Baugh and whoever else is getting carries. Part of that hitting the throws beyond the line of scrimmage is take advantage of the wide receiver talent. Mizell did not play against Miami for one reason or another. He's back, and perhaps even more importantly, or just as important, 5-star freshman Dallas Wilson, who had over 200 yards receiving in the spring game, is back as well. That gives us another guide, and this guy was more harped than VB3, and more hyped, than VB3, and we've seen how well overall VB3 has played so far, and now you've got Mizell, VB3, you've got Trey Wilson, and you got J. Michael Sturvant. You've got other guys who can come in, and they've got speed to make things happen. They can get in space, find ways to get them the ball in space. And again, if you do that, you've got a chance. But this is also the best defense you've faced so far. But if you're going to have any hope in this game, you've got to get that running offense going. But I don't think you're going to unless you get the pass going and getting it vertical beyond the line of scrimmage, getting it to some of these guys who can create plays in space. You know, Mizell can outrun anybody. Wilson looked to be big and physical. And you've got guys like VB3 and Trey Wilson who have also shown over the years, or in VB3's case, just this year, the ability to make plays. And obviously, just throwing screens that are easily read by the defense because it's a tendency is not that. Switching over to the defense, the first thing you got to get pressure on Arch Manning. We only have, I believe, 3 sacks on the year. This is a Texas offense that has replaced, I believe, 4 starters when we talked to Longhorn Republic, which, by the way, unfortunately, it didn't work out. I had a time scheduled with them to record, but then different things with me and them came up, and unfortunately, we will not have an opposing sideline on YouTube with them this week. It is unfortunate, but they are good guys. Be sure to check out their preview as well. Again, that's Longhorn Republic to get the Texas side of things. But pressure Arch Manning has not been impressive for Texas so far this year. His best game was Sam Houston. And let's be honest, we at least have more talent than they do. They've even struggled with some teams that were not even up there. And so that's what I would say is pressure Arch. He's not been great. And if you get that pressure, then there's a chance that he makes a mistake. And also you get that pressure, you get the crowd into it. They're in the horseshoe, but I will never say that the horseshoe is crazier than the swamp, although I have my concerns about the swamp after the way the season has played out so far. But I do think that you get the pressure, create a turnover, well, then things can go sideways for Texas pretty quick. We've seen us beat teams we should have. I go back to the 2023 Tennessee game. Should not have beaten that Tennessee team, but we did because the swamp was into it. The defense made some big plays early, changed the game. Also, we'll need a solid run defense in this game. They have multiple backs over 4 yards per carry. They have 2 that are on the injury on the depth chart, at least at this portion. But again, over 4 yards with, I believe, at least 3 running backs and Arch Manning over 4 yards per carry. We've got to be solid in that run defense. And part of that as well, it does look like we're getting back George Gumbs. We're getting back Mekhi Burrow, which should help. We talked about after Miami. Well, before the game, we end up missing 4 of our starting or 4 of our 2 deep. So 4 of our top 8 defensive linemen. Getting 2 of those back will be a big boost. It does stink that we're not going to see Caleb Banks or LJ McCray for the rest of the season from what it sounds like. But at least we got these guys and more guys to take reps so we don't see as much tired as we saw at the end of the Miami game, which really at the end of the Miami game when we couldn't stop the run game. That's just, they've been on the field so much. And part of that is the offense needs to do stuff to keep them off the field, get them more rest. But with that said, they did look good, even with the 8 people out, at having a solid run D against Miami, against the best offensive line we'll face this year. So I think with this Texas offensive line, you could be pretty solid, especially with the extra guys to give extra rest to everyone else. And finally, the defense does need to be disciplined. Last year we saw this. Sark is great at calling misdirections, whether it's, hey, I'm going to run some sort of reverse, or I'm going to, get everybody going one way and throw it back the other way, or whatever it is. We saw it last year. Big plays made by Steve Sarkisian calling things like that. Well, it's time for this defense to stay home, play their position, and do well. What doesn't help is in the secondary, Aaron Gates. Sounds like he had surgery this week, maybe out for the season after he missed last year. Really unfortunate. He's played overall decently well last year, of course, flashed some great plays, including an interception against Georgia. And also Dijon Johnson out for the season with an injury. So now 2 members of the secondary down. So we'll see what the young guys do stepping up into those positions. You know, we've got Cormani McLean, we've got Devin Moore at the corner positions, but behind them don't have much. Sharif Denson now is the main guy at that nickelback position, the star position. Hopefully, you know, whoever backs him up can do well. And of course, it'll be an interesting thing to see, since I believe we've got a bunch of freshmen or true freshmen and redshirt freshmen behind them. But again, for the defense, the keys I have are pressure Arch, since he's had some issues with pressure and just issues in general. Have solid run defense, but also be disciplined. Don't overcommit. Play your lanes, because Sark will try and get you out of position with some misdirection. And then finally, we'll go over to the team portion and things I want to see from the team. As always, few penalties, no special teams flags. That'll always be on there because it seems like we keep killing ourselves with penalties. And of course, special teams flags have been ridiculous and killers. In the Billy Napier era, we don't need any of those. Another team key, offense, defense, start strong. If you start strong, maybe the crowd really gets into it. And again, I have reservations on how the crowd will be because of all the issues of starting 1 and 3, the questions around Billy Napier, lots of talk about things that may or may not be chanted at the stadium. But I do think if you start strong and give the crowd a reason to get into the game, they will really get behind this team, especially with a big name opponent like Texas coming to the Swamp. And also, this is a revenge game. How many times have these players seen that dang graphic that people put up from last year, that still shot of Scott Strickland on the sidelines in Austin as the Gators are down 42-0 with his quote next to him that says, Billy Napier will be here for a long time. That's been shown around for, let's see, that was in November last year, so 11 months. That has been circulated, posted a bunch. And if that doesn't make you want revenge, if your back's to the wall and you believe this coach, you need to start strong and show this game matters to you. You should have done in Miami. And you know what? The defense mostly did. I mean, they gave up the first drive, but then after that, were decently solid. But from the first drive, start strong, get the crowd into it. The crowd in the Swamp can change games. I will go back to Tennessee 2023, Utah 2022, and we've seen lots of games over the years impacted by the crowd in the Swamp, getting loud early and often. But if you don't give them a reason by not starting strong, then I can just see them sitting on their hands for most of that game. And I will be as loud as I can, cheering my team on, but I've been to the Swamp enough to know how this crowd reacts. And it is what it is. And it's unfortunate, but again, at this point, a lot of people feel there's no reason to come in and cheer and need that reason. So start strong, give them that reason. And one of the ways you can also do that, get a big return on a kickoff or on a punt. You know, start off, if we start on defense, get that 3 and out, get the crowd like into it, and then really get them into it with a big return, kickoff, punt. We've talked about how that led to Florida's touchdown against LSU. We've seen other times this season, it kind of give us a little bit of momentum. And the last key, your backs are against the wall. You're looking at, I'll be honest, you're looking at probably the worst season that anyone's ever seen since 1979 in Gainesville. Definitely the worst season since Steve Spurrier took over in 1990. Prove that's not it. Especially you've got guys that have been here like Tyreek Sapp, Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber. Guys that have been here for 5 years. They went through 3 losing seasons, a 7-5 season, and now this season, and I've got a lot of respect for those 3 guys sticking it out in the orange and blue. Lots of love, lots of respect that they've done it. Do it for them. Go all out, win games. Don't let them be statistically they're going to end up probably anyways, but statistically the worst senior class that the Florida Gators have had, because these guys, they've all been solid. The 3 that I've mentioned, there's no blame. I mean, you got an all SEC guy, an all American guy coming in, doing the work, and yet somehow, some way, they've been overall failed in that they're looking at for their 5 years being losing seasons, and you don't come to Florida to see that. So whole team, show that your backs are against the wall. Give it a fight against what I ranked as the second toughest game coming to the year. And I would still say, even with all the issues that Texas has had, they're still 3-1, and that one loss was like 7 points on the road in Columbus against Ohio State. Like that, the way some people are acting like Texas has struggled, you're acting like Texas is Clemson, whose only win has been Troy. And it's like, no. This is a dangerous team that is getting it together, but still went on the road and one of the top teams in college football and pretty much took it down to the wire. So you need to be ready. This is an interesting time, as you know, and I'm sure I'm going to get Longhorns fans in here, maybe other people in here. I officially don't pick against Florida. It's my bias. I admit it. As much as sometimes it makes sense, like this week, like against Texas last year. And I'm not going to do that here. Like I've said, I do believe that there is magic in the swamp, and sometimes you see, even in the Billy Napier years, Florida winning games that shouldn't. Of course, there's a time when any game in the swamp, Florida should win. I remember when that streak started, I was there. I was there when that streak ended from, the first game of 94 through the Alabama game of 99. And of course, the Urban Meyer years, the swamp has been a special place. And I think it could be a special place this Saturday, especially if the D steps up early, especially if the crowd gets into it, really spurs things on. You never know what could happen. I don't see our offense scoring a lot of points, but I do think our defense may have a shot if they are disciplined. If they do have solid run D, I do think our defense has a shot at least keeping Texas to a low-scoring game. And with that said, this is not going to be anyone's favorite prediction, I'm sure, but I will believe in this defense, and I will believe in Trace Mack, which I did last time, and we didn't really kick him. Of course, had we kicked him a few times, who knows? We may have been 13-13 against Miami, and that would have been interesting. But with that said, I think Dallas Wilson makes a difference. Aiden Mizell, maybe part of the focus on some vertical passing. Maybe it was letting Callaway do a few things. I'm not holding my breath for it, but I'll go ahead. I'll give us the Gators 13-10. Defense really stacks up, maybe gets a turnover or two. Dallas Wilson and company are able to get us into field goal range a few times, get one touchdown, and, it'll be a fun upset in the swamp. We'll see if it happens. Again, my bias, but either way, I cheer. We only get 12 of these a year, and I really am doubting we get a 13th this year. But with that said, it is football season. We're going to cheer the Gators, win or lose. And all I've really got to say at that point is thank you all for listening. And as always, go Gators.